Welcome, everyone. Welcome, SAND community and friends. We are here with the Wisdom in the Times of Crisis, our online event hosted by SAND. And we are reflecting on the challenges and opportunities. This is a unique time, and we're coming together to share our wisdom and learn from these incredible guides. We are joined today, my name is Katie Gray, and we are joined today by Isira in Australia. And Isira is a profound and dynamic being who was raised in the Aboriginal lands of Southern Australia, and from that has acquired deep wisdom and knowledge and awareness of the Indigenous ways. She was ordained by the Dalai Lama, and she travels the world channeling this wisdom and sharing it, this medicine that is needed. And she's also dynamic in the way that she's lived a human life, of having experienced trauma, and through that has found transformation and powerful awareness to share with others. And in this time of crisis, we're honored, so honored to have her join us, someone who speaks both the language of the Indigenous wisdom as well as an understanding of how to find awareness and presence and be within the space of trauma and this crisis that we're all a part of. Welcome, Isira.
Thank you, Katie. It's wonderful to be here with you and with the SAND community and, of course, the whole world. We're very much in this together during this time of unprecedented challenge.
Yes, we are. I think it's as if all of the tools and the wisdom and the training has readied us for this, readied you as a spiritual teacher, I imagine, a guide, someone that brings wisdom. This is a powerful time where your purpose and your work is so needed and so necessary. I'd love to start us off with a question, with a curiosity. I think so oftentimes we associate, going to an enlightened state or accessing our higher wisdom through a beautiful and safe and tranquil experience. Yet there are moments like these that push us through the veil into a more enlightened state, a deeper state of pushing through to find the answers within ourselves, I imagine. I'm so curious, being someone like you who has incredible access, incredible wisdom to share, having been the teacher, having been the guide, having been someone that is comfortable sharing her awareness, her teachings, to feel confident enough to offer others what you know. In what ways have you, if you have, felt as though you were brought back to being the student? Each teacher is also the student. In what ways have you felt yourself returning to a place of learning through this experience?
Well, what a beautiful question. Thank you, Katie. In all honesty, I feel that in every moment. I feel myself as a child and a part of creation, that in each and every moment there is this awe, there is this wonder, there is this renewal, a mystery, and that mystery is forever. So, okay, as consciousness, we can be awake to or recognize the inherent nature of everything and that unchanged essence, which is not learner or student, it just is pure beingness itself. Yet that pure beingness is manifesting itself anew, moment to moment to moment, through this lived experience. So I am a student really of every new moment that is born. I'm a student of Mother Earth, of every creature, of every person that I encounter. I discover another expression of myself, another avenue of life, another pathway that I may travel or others are traveling. It's all a discovery. And this is why I like to remind everyone that it's a forever journey. We're all evolving in every single moment. There is no arrival into a there, that we arrive and that's it, we're done. There is no done. There is only being and becoming and being and becoming and being and becoming, which to me is the magic and the wonder of existence. I really feel deeply if that we lose the wonder and the awe of this, then life actually becomes dull. I mean, what is the purpose of life if that's it, you know everything and you're done? Well, it's done. why would we be here? Why would we be having this experience if there's nothing more to learn and discover?
Wow, so incredible. So what I hear you saying is to remain present, to embrace the learning of each moment, to witness and be a part of this mystery unfolding, and to witness it and to learn from each moment. And then, Isira, we have moments of crisis. We have moments where it is not comfortable, where the being and becoming is painful. You know, where the unknown is overwhelming. And you know, we are living within a state of an experience of this shared, for some it feels like trauma.
Yeah.
To actively be within the presence of that. In what ways do we allow ourselves, in what ways do we help usher maybe an inner safety, to feel safe enough to step forward in the being and becoming without contracting in this time?
Absolutely. Such a deep and relevant question and inquiry for every single person on the planet now, because we have become so immersed in these conditioned, restricted and contracted ideas of ourself and living, to the point that we've divorced ourselves from the natural order of things, of the universe, of existence, of life. And so this is where I talk about actually bridging that gap between the notion of the spiritual inquiry, the need for us to awaken or restore that inner connection to the essential self, you know, the eternal, timeless being, etc. That when we do restore that connection, it does provide us with a bigger perspective. It helps us put things back in perspective again. However, if we imagine that everything will be made okay solely by that focus, we divorce ourselves actually from the far greater synergy of existence and how it does support us to embrace change. Because at the manifest level, at the seen, felt level, it is all change every single moment. And yet, even though, you know, most spiritual seekers agree with this conceptually, yet still live contrary to that, as if it's not real. And we all know, we've all had moments of this where we lose sight of the impermanence because we're living in a world that is trying to make everything permanent. We are absolutely addicted to the materialistic mindset. And so because of that, it's very, very difficult to have this whole relationship. And so my question to the spiritual seekers or life inquirers today is, what if that inside job that we've been talking about is only part of the awakening process. It's only part of what we need to navigate our way through change and crisis. What if the reason we are so immensely challenged when we are faced with change is not because of the change itself, but because of the disruption to the way we are living? And so that then leads me to point back to our Indigenous roots. Now, look, I have Indigenous roots, and so it's in my blood. It's very present in my being, in my cells, in my spirit. But I understand we all actually have those roots. It's in all humans' DNA, this deep, innate, primal knowing of our unity and our relationship with all of life and all of creation. And so I speak about the 4 pillars of law, which rest on one central tenet. And this is common to all Indigenous wisdom and teachings. And therefore, actually, really, it's common to the roots of all people, no matter who we are, where we are from, what time we're living in. And that is the relationship to place. First and foremost, we emerge from earth. We don't just land here. We're not just plopped onto earth. We are born of earth. From the formless into form, we arrive in place, country, nature. We are actually a product of earth. We're a product of every tree, every rock, every creature, every breath of wind, every drop of rain. We are a product of it. Second is the kinship, the relationship to our immediate family that births us and to every living being that surrounds us in our environment. That kinship, communion. Third is the underlying essence and spirit within every single being. So first we come into form, and that's our first basis of relationship. Then our relationship with each other, our family. Then we get to learn through those interactions our own sense of being and essence. And if we have this wisdom intact, we are constantly connected to that and nurtured by that and informed by that. So we're given the tools to have that relationship with our innermost essence and to see that alive in every living thing. The soul, the unseen. And then fourth is the laws, the patterns of creation between microcosm and macrocosm and cause and effect, just seeing the whole relationship between everything. So it all rests on one central tenet, which is everything is interconnected. Everything is interdependent. So if we only focus on consciousness as if that is our savior and that's the job, it's an inside job, and we put all of our energy, we invest everything into that, trying to explore and awaken through consciousness and change everything through that realm. As I said, we're divorcing ourselves from the far greater field of wisdom, power, energy, intelligence that actually informs us of what we are, not who we are. The real inquiry is not who am I, it is what am I? And because these pillars have been so disrupted and divorced in our life, we're not living in harmony, in accord with them, then we actually are cut off from the wisdom, the knowledge we need, the guidance we need. The trees can guide us, the birds, the insects can guide us. Each living person we meet, as I said before, becomes our teacher. Every moment we are a student and we are here to learn from that. And if we're connected to that, then we live in accord with the natural laws and we don't fight it, we don't resist it. So I have this saying, pain is inevitable, tension and suffering is optional. So right now we're living in acute suffering, chronic suffering. And that's because we haven't lived in a way that we embrace and understand the energy, part, purpose, and dynamic of pain, tension, challenge, change. Whereas if we live in harmony with it, we accept it as a part of ourself and life, we're with it. We're able to lean into it. We're able to be open as the child of the universe, as the student, and be guided and be nurtured through that process. Instead, the modern day human fights and resists it and controls. We try and control everything as if we can make it permanent according to these conditioned ideas. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. So for us to really embrace this time of crisis and change, we need to really get back to the true nature of ourselves, not as some insular thing, but as a holistic reality.
Beautiful. Thank you, Isira. That's beautiful. I hear so much in what you're saying. I feel that I'm hearing a lot of an awareness of connection, not just to the to our own individual needs, obviously, but to the earth, to the birds, to nature, to the natural world. I was really moved when you brought that into the conversation, the natural world, because I think, like you described, and I've also read some of your work supporting activism to take action, and like you're saying, that to evolve our minds into higher levels of consciousness is part of the work. But then there are these other elements of necessity in creating change. And like you said, we're birthing, we're the form that is coming into being. And then there's connection. And then there's external connection, internal connection, and continued growth. And it's fascinating in a time where so many are told to be quarantined and to be separated from one another. When people are told to go indoors, so don't go outside, go indoors. So there we're breaking off the connection to the natural world. And then we're told don't connect with one another. So which obviously we can connect with one another on an astral plane, but, that takes years of study and perfecting, and it takes a lot of permission. And if you've been through trauma, then you may have a lot of fear around losing your control of being in the physical realm, because that keeps you safe, to be protective. There's a lot of permission that we must give ourselves to trust in a world that's much bigger and more important. This multi-universe of the natural world and the internal world and the spiritual realms. I'm moved by what you're saying, and I'm curious, in what ways do you see us working with that? Let's just be really honest. There's a quarantine, and everyone is in this place of division and separation. How do we welcome the importance of nurturing those other pillars of connection with one another and the natural world? That deeper level of awareness. How do we engage with that and take action when so many, maybe not you or I, maybe you've been out in your garden and I've been hiking, but we're talking billions of people are sharing this experience. What do you imagine would be a way to connect with those other pillars and nurture them if you're alone in your house by yourself and you're afraid? You're experiencing trauma and you're afraid. How do we touch into those other pillars? How do we make contact with those other forms of very necessary healing, like the Indigenous teach us?
Yeah. And it's so, again, so relevant for us to reflect on this, because our current situation, it really is unprecedented. It is extraordinary when we look at the impact it is having on humanity, individually and collectively. The first thing I want to reflect on, however, is what this is really awakening. That those wonderful words, you don't know what you got until it's gone. I really do see there's so many elements to this coronavirus pandemic that is an awakener. It is a profound messenger, a catalyst for a reset, for us to reconnect to what does really matter most. And sometimes it takes a disruption or a loss, or, you know, perhaps a suspension of the things that matter most for us to wake up to that again, to recognize how integral and essential it is to every single one of us, individually and collectively. And so I feel first and foremost, that's actually the gift of this situation. I deeply acknowledge with the greatest love and compassion the fear and the trauma that people are feeling as a result of this. And then we move to some other comforting words. This too shall pass. It's us, again, recognizing the bigger picture and the perspective that whilst we're in this crucible right now of trauma, conflict, crisis, fear, and incredible disturbance, we are in it for a reason. And if it means we start to deeply feel, not something that's told to us, not some distant memory that, oh, our ancestors said, you know, you need to stay connected with nature, and human contact and connection and kinship and life kinship. These are the most important things, you know, not as some distant memory or story, but as a visceral, immediate recognition for ourselves that, my God, I need this. And sometimes it takes that compelling force for us to awaken again and to rise up and reclaim that and say, yes, I'm going to restore this relationship with myself, with nature, with life, with my loved ones. I'm going to repair those burnt bridges. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to heal. I'm going to ask for forgiveness. I will find the way to rebuild those relationships. And so then on that point, whilst we are still in these circumstances, some individuals unable to go outdoors, you know, there are countries that they've been locked inside, like you say. I mean, gosh, how privileged I am here in Australia. I know we have not had it anywhere near as, you know, severely as other places. So for those who are stuck inside and who maybe are completely alone without a partner or immediate family, even if you can look out the window at the tree, at the sky, just take your gaze there. It will have a healing effect. Science has proven this. And one of the most interesting research papers I came across recently was a study on prisoners. And it came to be one of the facts in all this green space, blue space research. Prisoners who had a view of trees had far better mental health than the prisoners who did not. And so all this research shows us that even if we can just look at nature, it changes something in our brains. It changes our physiology. It has an immediate healing and beneficial impact on us. And the second point is that even if we cannot physically be in company with each other, we also know through neurological research and studies that our imagination and what the body feels and thinks are not separate. The body actually believes what we are imagining, which is why hypnosis is very effective. So if I tell you right this moment, I want you to imagine chewing on a lemon. Just close your eyes and imagine that. Chew on a lemon, suck on it. what happens?
Yeah.
I start to really right. That's the power of the connection between our brain, what we're imagining or visioning and thinking, and our body's response. So, if we can't be physically with our loved ones, think of your happy times with them. Think of conversations you've had with someone you've met that really inspired you. And we know we have a lot of online material. So look for the people that you really admire. It's a time to really drink in inspiration. It's a time to reflect and to really appreciate the things that give us greater value. And so even just doing that as a memory or imagination or online is actually having its impact, a positive benefit on us. And then, of
So
course,
beautiful.
yeah. And then, of course, it is reminding us, hey, let's really appreciate this. Once we get to the other side of this situation, you know what we're going to give priority? We are going to give priority real human relationships. Maybe this time is helping us go, hold on a minute, do we really want to live in an AI-driven world? Do we really want to work digitally, or do we really want real human interaction? Do we want to be cooped up in an office, locked behind four walls, or do we want to have a relationship with nature? Do we want to learn interactively again with life? That's actually what's going to restore us and give us a way to move forward and create a more positive, healthy, thriving world.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. I found it so fascinating, your, bringing in nature and the natural world, and then your mentioning inside of a prison, looking out, and those whose mental health became much healthier and stronger with that contact, even if it was just visual. And then you mentioning being locked behind four walls, where are we imprisoned? And where has the social distancing and this entire shared experience made us look at where we've been imprisoned within our day-to-day lives? Because we are, I see that correlation of the prisoner, and then swinging that back around to locked within these four walls and staring outside, not able to go outside, taking your rights away, feeling separated, feeling alone. In a way, it could bring up feelings of imprisonment. And within that space of imprisonment, for how long have we been imprisoned? And in our minds, how long have we been imprisoned? How long have our hearts been imprisoned? Being in this space of deeper awareness, like you're saying, to recognize connection and the importance of our loved ones, and to make sure that we continue to nurture those authentic connections. And I also imagine that when you look at those trees and you think about the warm embrace of your loved ones that you can't be near right now, how they are also experiencing that exchange of acknowledgement and love. And that intrigues me to ask you, Isira, if we are, let's say, in this state of somewhat being imprisoned, I personally don't feel as though I'm imprisoned, but like you're saying, everyone is having a different experience worldwide. So some are feeling imprisoned, and some are genuinely more in an imprisoned state, with a high order to stay indoors, etc. What are ways that we can nurture these connections? As you mentioned, visualization. Can you share with us other ways to nurture connection, to nurture awareness? If someone, for me, it might be going out and hiking, going to sit in nature to nurture my relationship with nature. But what if I can't go be in nature so I can visualize nature? What if someone is feeling a lot of loneliness And what if they don't have loved ones that they can call upon because they've been in a state of imprisonment within themselves for so long? Where then? Where do we dig a little deeper and find connection when the community of fellow humans may not be available, not even in our minds? Maybe if someone was raised in the city, they don't have a relationship to nature. Where do we dig deeper to experience a level of connection to, maybe you have some tools or some tokens of awareness that, or some thought patterning that helps those of us who feel like very disconnected from community, from the natural world, from the whole.
Yeah, and look, I guess there's two angles to how we can look at this. One is that, as you say, there can be individuals who are experiencing deep bondage, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that although we know at the greatest level that's not true, it is their perceived experience. And so relative to that perceived experience, it can be very, very difficult to offer tokens of awareness or tools, because the primary focus of a person in that state is survival. And in survival mode, it's very, very difficult for an individual to extend their thinking out. It's very locked in and tends to be in a feedback loop. And that's why when I think of people, and when I've supported people who are in great trauma, I think back to some of my own experiences in my childhood and in my early years. I was homeless as a young teenager, and my early years were certainly not happy in terms of their conditions. And I experienced periods of probably the most extreme loss and disconnection you can imagine. So in that experience of being homeless as a young teenager, I was completely alone. I was without a home. I had all around me that field of abuse that I had been going through and was being faced with and confronted with. And I remember that even in that situation, it may be difficult to comprehend this, but even in that situation, I had an inner peace and happiness. And when I look back now, I understand the reason was because my attention was on what I did have. Despite the loss or abuse or trauma at the scene, the physical level of events, I still had a connection with myself. I still had a connection with awareness, and I was able to see immediately what life was giving me, even if it was just a park bench to sit on, even if it was a cup of warm tea that the man in the cafe gave me. I had something. I had my body. And so this practice of focusing on what we have, actually, even though it can seem contradictory, because sometimes a person goes, oh, but what I have, my world is a nightmare. It's, it's full of conflict, and I don't have anything. Immediately the mind can think that. But if we interrupt that loop and we really push into, okay, yes, there's all of that not have, but really look for what you do have, it shifts, it resets the psychology and helps the individual to be grounded in being. And when we can get that, even a degree of regrounding in beingness, we get breathing space in our mind, in our thinking, in our perspective. It provides the possibility of a shift in that fight, flight, loop, which is just this negative mind. It can't see or imagine anything positive to connect to. So you have to find ways to disrupt that loop. And one of the second little tools I recommend for people is, if you notice you're caught in that negative feedback loop in your mind, you're thinking, you're overwhelmed by your circumstance, do what you can to change state. And what I mean by that is, you'll typically see you get in a rut. You sit in the same chair, or you sit in the same corner of your room, or you have the same depressive thoughts when you're at the kitchen sink. As soon as you notice that, change state. Instead of being at the kitchen sink, go to your bedroom, put on a new set of clothes, or go to the bathroom, wash your face, open the front door, stare up at the sky. Because even if we live in an apartment, we can open a door, we can open a window, we can look at the sky. Even if we live in an apartment, we can take off our shoes, we can step outside and put our feet on the bare ground. Or if you can't step outside, for those of you who may still be completely locked in, still take your shoes off, put your feet on your floor, and recognize that you are here with Mother Earth, with Earth. She is here holding us all. So all of these things are utilizing what we do have. And that's the only way we can be grounded in the now, is to bring our attention back to that.
Beautiful. To be present, to be appreciative, to address the story, to bring consciousness when the unconsciousness starts spiraling. That's so beautiful. I love holding this vision of everything that you're sharing and seeing it spiral outward and touching and embracing our entire species, the entire world. There's two, it seems as though there are two narratives, many more than two, but, let's just address two strong narratives that seem to be happening right now. And the one is that, we need to be afraid. There's a virus. We need to hide. We need to go within. We need to wait it out until we can go back to normal. We need to watch movies and do anything we can to temporarily comfort ourselves until we are given the permission to not be victims anymore and to go back out and be normal and claim our story of normalcy. And then there's another perspective that so many share. And again, there's many perspectives, but these are just two. That this is a time of much needed transformation, that the natural world is hurting, that we are hurting, our collective minds are hurting, that there's illness in the collective psyche, that there is illness on our planet and the environment, and that we have the opportunity to take this moment to have a thorough look. And I think you had mentioned it in one of your writings, this being like the dark night of the soul. And that to me feels as though, for me, I lean into direction number 2 of those descriptions, feeling that a dark night of the soul is the breaking open and the just the complete disassemblance, so as to let that shell fall off and then let the truth and the real spirit and soul emerge. And I'm curious, with you, what do you see intuitively as far as where this is going for our entire species, as far as this being the potential of a massive transformation? Or do you see this lasting for a little while longer and then we just patch things up and continue on?
So interestingly, I guess, at the relative level, you know, as the human experience, I might say an aspect of me as a realist, an aspect of me as a visionary. Notice I don't say I am a, it's just there are aspects to all of us. They happen to be two aspects that I really feel and see through. So as a realist, I see that yes, we've been holding patterns of what we think is normal, what we think is, you know, the way life is and the way we should be living it, yet that way of living is unsustainable. It's why we are in existential crisis now. You know, like if we were living in natural accord, we wouldn't be in such a chronic state of crisis, because this is the tipping point. You know, we've been having these cumulative impacts through so many different arenas of our world for generations upon generations upon generations upon generations. Actually, this crisis has been a slow creep, and now it's reached, you know, it's absolutely explosive proportions. So there's such a disconnection from what is real, what is sustainable, what is in harmony, that, and people are so afraid of the enormity of change that is needed for that, which is why so many people are holding on to the bubble. They're holding on to the idea that this is the world and this makes us happy and this is what we need. And it's not happiness, it's pseudo happiness. We know that. I mean, why are the most developed countries in the world suffering the highest rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide? Why? If everything we have is so good, it's not sustainable. So even though that bubble exists and many people are living in that, comforting themselves and hoping, right, we'll just get through this, won't we? What's one of the stages of grief? Bargaining. I'll just do what you tell me to do so that we can get back to normal, right? Okay, so not dealing with change consciously, imagining that's it, we'll just go back to normal. Things ain't going back to normal. You know, this has really disrupted our world at every single level. And we do know this. We perhaps haven't been really presented with all of the information or all of the understanding to truly comprehend the magnitude and the extent and the flow-on effect this is having and will have yet for many years to come. But that is a fact. You know, it's like standing there and knocking over Papa Bear domino and all the other dominoes that have been lined up with it and go, oh, don't worry, it'll all just stand up again. And all the dominoes are just going, and they're just going off down the track. That's the situation we're in. So on that front, it is a time for us to shake off our illusions and really honestly take a deep, hard look at ourselves and what we're living, how we've been living, how we ended up in this situation, and the systems we're living with anyway. How do we need to see that? So that's the realist, you know, view into it. The visionary says, yes, and we have always been change and disruption. This is creation. It is destructive and creative. It is beautiful and ugly. This is existence, from seen to unseen, from seen to unseen, from seen to unseen. It's doing itself over and over and over. And so as a visionary, I see this incredible potential and incredible hope, because really the greatest and most necessary changes have always come through the greatest crisis. Always. It's destruction that gives birth to evolution, to renewal, to creating a better version of ourselves. And so I really see that so many people around the world are embracing this, recognizing this. So many people are empowered, emboldened by this and saying, yes, this is our time. And the reality is we've come from degenerative living, generations upon generations upon generations. That's been us. We are all part of it. We all have been living a part of the degeneration. But here now, this is the crucible. This is the pivotal moment of humanity. So disrupted, and always in a time of disruption is a window of multiple possibilities and opportunities. And that means that we're all in this time of opportunity and change together. It doesn't matter who we are, where we're from, what age we were born into, what generation we come from. We're all part of this now, this time on the planet, the regeneration. That's what we are. And that's one of my most impassioned messages is to unify us all, to recognize, you know what, we are all this same generation. We are the regeneration. And every one of us carries wisdom, carries talent, passion, vision, love, purpose, meaning. And it's time for each of us to reclaim that and step forward with the unique gifts that we carry, and to allow that to open us all to each other, unify us. And not just that, but in restoring our relationship with all life, with the natural world, to be truly guided by ancient wisdom, but new awareness in this time, because we have an opportunity to create and live in a way that has never been imagined before. So that's the visionary in me that says, wow, there is immense hope because power exists in you.
Wow. There is immense hope because power exists in you. Reclaiming that power within yourself. That's so beautiful, so powerful. Isira, thank you so much. I would love, we just have a few more minutes. I would love to find out, well, there's so much I would love to give to you. I feel like you've given us so much. But we also want to utilize these precious moments to be nurtured by your wisdom. So I would love to just perhaps ask a parting question as we complete our time together. If you were able to plant an intention or an idea that could be planted into the little gardens of our hearts and our minds, and the place where manifestation is given its fuel, what might be an intention or a question? You know, I hear you ask a lot of questions, which helps people prompt that power within them, like you speak. What might be something that you would, an intention or a question that you would offer for people to contemplate as they sit with these words that you've shared, and as they continue forward in their lives, nurturing their ideas and their thoughts and their intentions? What might be something that would be a nice seed to be planted there?
Yeah. I would like to share two of the most consistent contemplations and inquiries I've had within myself all my life. And I feel that these two inquiries have enabled me to embrace and accept life as it is in each and every moment, and to respond to it with the greatest possibility, with my best efforts, with consciousness, with love, with openness, with awareness. And these two contemplations are, what is the opportunity of this moment? And how may I serve in this moment? And so in opening myself to that, when I think back to some very intense passages in my life, that was my mainstay. I would ask myself that every day. I would sit, I would feel, I would just be here, be open and ask, okay, what is the opportunity of this moment? So if I was confronted, you know, for example, I was in the middle of a cyclone once that ripped apart where I was living, and I didn't know where I was going to be next. You know, like, okay, what is the opportunity of this moment? And how may I serve? And that enabled me to always see the whole perspective, to recognize that there is a purpose behind every single moment and every single event. And that in every moment I am an instrument of creation, here to fulfill a part that is not just about gratifying myself. And that, ironically, actually brings us the greatest, deepest fulfillment that we can find. If you want to be happy and fulfilled for a moment, try to make yourself happy. If you want to be happy and fulfilled for your life, make others happy and fulfilled.
Beautiful. And that sums up everything that you've shared, the connection, the importance of being aware of where we come from and our relation to the whole, to it all, and the deep trust and knowing that we have that connection. And it's when we come out of survival mode, we nurture the world around us and those around us, we can be more appreciative of what we have. Isira, a huge thank you from me as well as the Sand community for joining us and sharing your incredible rays of awareness. I wanted to say tokens or jewels, but they're rays of light of awareness. And we are deeply grateful and honored that you took the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Katie. And it's really been a beautiful sharing with you today. Your open heart and your presence, your love, your awareness, and your vision as well for a transformed self and world is really evident. So thank you, and great love to everyone, the Sand community and people all around the world at this time and always. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll finish with one last word from my Indigenous ancestors, Nali Gumara. We are one.